I didn't know necessarily who I was talking to. I knew that it was something beyond human, and I also knew not to talk about it. But every single night, just before I would go to sleep, my guides would walk me through connecting with the nothing. And that was what I did every night for about 12 years of my life. Being able to focus on just one thing is the way that you can learn to listen to your guides. Should I change my job? Should I live somewhere else? Those questions are huge. Those are more easily answered when we can listen to the very small intuitive hits. When I chose to listen to my guides, when I was able to meditate and really hone a quiet mind, and then being able to have a calm body, all of that is really how I've learned to channel. Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Eluña. I am an Akashic channeler and a psycho-spiritual healer. And today I would like to share a bit about how I began channeling. I get so many questions about how to connect with my guides. That is one of the main questions that I receive when I am doing one-on-one readings with people. And the other question is, how can I start to channel? How can I start to open to my channel or open to my guides? That is another question, or even open to the Akashic records. That is another question that a lot of people ask me when I'm working with them. And so I just wanted to come on here. I felt called to share a little bit about my story and share with you some of the tools that helped me and that I still use to this day. And just before I get into that, I wanted to remind you all that my next live Q&A is coming up on Sunday, July 21st. It is always so incredible to do those with you all and just get to be in community and share that experience, hear your questions, and then get them answered from my guides. So I would love to see you there. If you would like to register for that or learn more information, you can go to my website, eluñanoel.com, and it would be great to have you there. So here is a brief snippet of how I started to open to channel. There are many stories I could tell, but I really want to start with kind of how things began for me. So I have been in touch with my guides and in fairly open and direct communication with them since I was a child. Now, I didn't know necessarily who I was talking to. I knew that it was something beyond me. I knew that it was something greater than myself because and beyond human, because I could feel the energy of it. That's really the only way to explain. I could feel that it was not a human. And I also knew not to talk about it. I knew that I had to keep it to myself because of all the stories of people seeming crazy who are hearing voices or what have you. And I just was very afraid of being put into that category. So I didn't talk about it at all. But every single night when I was a child, starting at a certain age and going up into just before I pretty much hit puberty is how long it lasted, I was guided at nighttime. Just before I would go to sleep, one of the things that my guides would walk me through was connecting with the nothing. And that is how they called it when I was a child. They said, it is now time to connect to the nothing. And so essentially they would lead me through a process of becoming more and more distant from my body and from my mind and becoming the nothing. So first they would just have me imagine nothing. They would say, imagine that you are in the nothing, that you're surrounded by nothing, imagine nothing. And they would just basically keep saying, imagine nothing while I was doing that until my consciousness got farther and farther and farther away. And then they would say, now become nothing. And I would. And I would stay in that state of being nothing for as long as I could. Sometimes they would take me into another lesson. Other times I would stay in that place until I fell asleep. And that was what I did every night for about 12 years of my life. I was just guided to doing that. And that was normal for me. I understand that saying that now sounds very strange, perhaps. But that for me was normal. That's what I did every night, along with other lessons that I won't go into in this video. But that was a huge part of it. That was the main piece of my lessons at nighttime was that. So the other thing that I was doing a lot as a child, I spent a lot of time alone. So I grew up in Washington State. in the rainy southern Pacific Northwest rainforest is where I grew up. And I loved being outside, even though it was raining. I mean, I didn't know any different, right? I had grown up there, so rain was just normal. It was just part of my life. And I loved being outside. It didn't matter that it was raining or that it was cold and that I would get wet. I just wanted to be in nature. It was the most peaceful place for me, was being outside. So when I would go outside and just wanted to spend time alone, I was naturally guided, I would say, to listening to just one sound, one single sound that I would focus on. So we had a pond near our house, and in the summertime, the frogs would always croak and they would sing every night. And I would listen to that sound and try to follow one frog that was singing, to try to listen for exactly that frog, the same frog, and to find the rhythm and the pattern with which it was croaking. That's one example. One of my other, or maybe two of my other favorites, I guess, that still to this day I love, was the sound of rain falling on the ground or falling onto the trees. That sound is so peaceful. And the other sound is the wind blowing through the trees or blowing the leaves. Those sounds are so peaceful to me. I would close my eyes and I would just listen to them. And I would block out, I would become so focused on just the wind that all of the other sounds that were around, they would just fade away. And the only thing that I could hear was the wind. That I would, I guess, practice, which for me, I was just enjoying it, but it was a practice of honing my focus, my ability to focus on just one thing completely. That is what I did, and I loved it, and I would just stay in that state. There was a certain place that I would get to where I would be so focused on it at a certain point, and everything else would be gone, that I would actually lose track of time and I would not have a body anymore. I was gone. I was in another place because I was the wind or I was the rain at that point. And again, I really didn't think about it that much because I was young and I was just enjoying myself, but that was a practice that really honed my ability to focus on just one thing and not have a scattered mind. And that's the other piece is being able to focus on just one thing is the way that you can learn to listen to your guides. So if you imagine that your mind very often is like a very crowded room or a very crowded, an overcrowded dinner table, and all of the guests are talking at once and talking over each other and asking for someone to pass the mashed potatoes, and someone else is trying to tell a story, and someone else is making a joke, and it's all happening at once. And if that's your mind, you're not able to listen to the one being who is patiently sitting beside you, looking at you, waiting for your attention. With all of that activity and sound happening, it's very easy to overlook that quiet, patient being that's waiting. That quiet, patient being is your higher self. It is you in another place, or your soul, if you want to imagine it as that is wanting to speak to you. And if we cannot hone our focus to listening to just one thing, it will be very hard to hear the voice of your soul or the voice of your higher self or the voice of any other guide that you have. So that's one piece that has still stuck with me and that I still practice to this day, is just listening to one thing, because it happens to be very soothing. I don't know if you've ever tried to just turn your attention, you close your eyes and you don't think about anything else, and all you do is listen to one thing. It's so peaceful. It's so soothing for your whole body to just the only task that it has is listening to one thing. It's very peaceful. Something that you could try if you want is to try that with a piece of classical music or a piece of very soothing music. I happen to like classical music, so that is something that I've tried it with, but it could be a piece of meditation music or, Zen music, any sort of maybe soundscape, something like that, that doesn't have words, to just have that one sound that you're focusing on and just see how it goes. That could be worth trying. So the other thing that happened for me with listening and the way that it kind of shifted as I got older was when I was living on my own and I'm working now, I'm out of college and all that. And my guides really started to become more direct with me. And it's because I wanted them to. And also I needed them. I was going through a bit of a rough time. That's a story for another day of my actual circumstances. But they were trying to talk to me. And so they would, I'm going to use the word test me, but not in an aggressive, you pass or fail kind of a test, just like a here's an opportunity kind of a test, where they would give me a nudge, and that nudge would come in a few ways. So they started with nudges of a feeling of like, oh, maybe I shouldn't fill in the blank, or oh, maybe I should fill in the blank, where it would be just a feeling, something like that. Sometimes it was a visceral feeling in my gut of like a no, of a stay away from that. That's a very, very clear sign that for me anyway, that my guides are saying absolutely do not do that. That is something that I for the most part, I never ignored because it was so very clear. But the ones that are more subtle, where you're deciding, are you going to listen to this intuitive guidance? Because it's something it's not life-threatening in any way. It's just, it would make your life easier if you did listen to the guidance. And you're essentially saying, I am open to receiving guidance when you choose to listen. And so that's what my guides were testing for me and with me by giving me messages such as, one day, I still remember, it was raining because I was in Washington, and it was pouring down rain because it was winter time in Washington state. And I was getting ready to leave my house. I was running the tiniest bit behind because I needed to catch the bus to get to my job. And the boots that I put on that day, I had this feeling as I was putting them on, I should wear different shoes. But I immediately thought, well, no, I don't want to wear different shoes. These are the boots that I have. They're right here. One of my boots is already on. I'm going to lose more time if I try to change my shoes now. That's obviously not true. The 10 seconds that it would have taken to take my shoe off and put on new shoes would have saved me a lot of trouble, because for the rest of the day, I had to walk around with broken shoes, a broken boot. And so my heel had come basically off of my boot. And so water was getting into my shoes, so they were broken, and I had wet feet all day because it broke on my way to the bus and I was already late, so I couldn't turn around. That was a moment of my guides trying to share with me and just honing my intuition, my intuitive ability of saying, here's something that would make your life easier. Are you going to listen? And I didn't. And I will say that it's taken me a long, long time to learn how to really listen. And I still don't pass, if you want to use that word, all the time. There are still times that I make that I forget, that I get a feeling and I say to myself, oh, that was the feeling. That's why I had the hit to not go to that place today or to take care of this thing today, whatever it might be. And again, it's nothing that's major, but the more that we are able to learn how to listen to those really small things, the more that we're able to listen to the major intuitive hits. So the questions that people have of, should I change my job? Or should I move my house? Should I live somewhere else? Those questions are huge, major decisions. They are life-changing decisions. Those are more easily answered when we can listen to the very small intuitive hits. And in general, your life is easier. Your life is easier when you listen to your intuition because your guides and your intuition are there to assist you, just to support you, right? To give you a little cushion while you're going through your day. So that is something else that I have learned. And there were also, and I encourage you to find the ways that this is true for you. That's an example of listening and having something happen that's not great, right? So those are very illustrative, helpful examples because it's easier to avoid those in the future. But it's also really nice to look for the examples in which you ask for direct guidance and then you receive that. So an example for me is, and this is a bit more energetic of an example, but an example for me is during that same time, actually, of when my boot broke. I was one night, I was just really kind of struggling with being very alone, just feeling very lonely because I was very lonely at the time. And I asked my guides, I said, if you are really listening to me and if you can hear me and you're really here, which I know you are, but if you can you please make me feel like I have a hug, just a hug, because I didn't have anyone to hug and I just felt sad. I was working alone and really didn't have any friends or anything. And so I just really wanted to have a hug. And so I asked them, could you please give me a hug and make me feel like I have that? The response that I got, and I'm going to put it into words, but it was more of a feeling, was if you want to feel like you have a hug, then just stand up and reach your arms up and be open to receive, and you will feel like you have a hug. So that's what I did. I actually happened to be on my bed. So I stood up on my bed because I just did it right where I was. And I reached up and I did feel like I had a hug. Immediately, I felt the embrace of their love, the encouragement, this feeling of soft, like support and a feeling of like receiving strength from someone. That's how it felt. I felt fully supported and I started crying because I realized, wow, they are always here. They really are listening to me. They really are around, and it's up to me to also listen. Because if I had not chosen to stand up, if I had shrugged that feeling off and said, oh no, that's silly, I'm not going to stand up and reach my arms up to nothing. If I had talked myself out of it, I wouldn't have received that. But I did, and it was beautiful, and it was just what I needed at the time. So the quieting of the mind comes from learning to focus your ability to listen and just learning to focus really on anything, on any one thing. So some of the meditations that I have practiced over the years, because what my guides started me with of going into the nothing, that is a form of meditation. That is a form of practicing focusing on just one thing and allowing basically your consciousness to dissolve and to dissipate, to just disappear and become something else, become not you and become nothing. That is essentially the act of meditation. Of course, as a child, I didn't know that. But now that I'm older, I have been practicing meditation for, I actually kind of forget how old I am, for 13 years, going on 13 years now. So it's, and I'm not counting the time of when I was a child, just as an adult, or, you know, an older teenager, I guess, really. That's really when I started, and it's been on and off. It hasn't been a consistent time. But for the most part, it's been fairly consistent of practicing different types of meditation. So one meditation that I absolutely love is, focusing the breath, because that really calms the body, but it also focuses the mind on something. It gives the mind something to focus on. So there are kind of two ways that I've done that and that I will practice that. One is the sensation of inhaling and exhaling. So when I breathe in through my nose, my focus is completely and fully on the feeling of air going into my nose. And the same is true when I'm exhaling in that type of meditation. The feeling is just on what does it feel to have air go out of my nose. So that's one meditation. that I will practice either with kind of soft-eyed, like a half-closed meditation, or my eyes completely closed, of just inhaling and exhaling and only focusing on the inhale and exhale. I would set a timer for 7 minutes or 10 minutes, and that's all I would focus on for that amount of time. Another breath meditation that I would focus on when my mind needed something more tangible to focus on, because what I've noticed is that if there's something that my mind can listen to or say basically to itself, it has an easier time. Especially when I was very first practicing meditation, it was much easier to have something to give my mind to say. So I would count my breath in a very relaxing way. So I would inhale for a count of 6 slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 at that pace. I would hold my breath for a count of 4 at that same speed, and then I would exhale for a count of 8 at that same speed. And again, I would just practice that for maybe 7 or 10 minutes and just give my mind something to focus on. So that's what I would do kind of for closed-eyed meditations. For an open-eyed meditation, I have loved always for so long setting up a beautiful space in my room. Usually I would sit in front of my altar or in front of a mirror, and I would set up a little table or a space in front of me that had either a small bowl of water or a candle that I have lit. And I would do a soft-eyed, and soft-eyed means your eyes are kind of like half closed. They're a bit out of focus. And I would do a soft-eyed meditation on the candle or the bowl of water in front of me. And again, I would just set a timer and do that for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. Other times I actually would do a soft-eyed meditation on a crystal, just to connect with that energy and really feel the presence of whatever was in the crystal, the energy of the crystal. I would just do that again for 10 or 15 minutes. And the final piece, the final practice that has helped me tremendously, I don't even know if I am fully aware of how much it has helped me, is Qigong. The mindful meditative movement of Qigong is, from my perspective, unparalleled. I have practiced various forms of movement since I was about 7. I used to support my sister with working out. She's much older than me, and she just wanted a workout buddy. And so I would do it because I was a kid and it was a way to hang out with my sister. So I've done a lot of different types of movement. And when I got older and realized that I wanted a more meditative experience rather than like a straight up workout, if you will, I would try yoga and then also Qigong. And Qigong is just very different from yoga. And if you have a yoga practice, beautiful, great. You have a movement practice. I'm by no means saying changing it. Qigong is just different. The premise of Qigong is that every movement that you do, you are doing with bare minimum effort. As in, when you lift your hands, it is almost as if they're just floating up on their own. And the same is true when you bring them down. It's like you're not actually moving them. They're almost moving on their own. And what happens at a certain point, the more that you practice, is you begin to realize that the way that you're doing that with no effort is because you're actually moving your astral body. That's really what's going on in Qigong. So Qigong it is a mindful movement. It is a meditative practice. And you are getting in touch with energy. It's like an all-in-one practice. And it's soothing, it's strengthening. You get so much. There's so much from Qigong. I won't go fully into all of that because I welcome you and encourage you to do your own research on Qigong. But truly, it is one of the practices that has helped me the most, and I still use it. I use it every year. There's a certain season that I move into kind of it's Qigong season for me. And I practice that continuously. And anytime my energy is feeling kind of out of shape or distorted in some way, I usually go into a Qigong movement of some kind just to bring it back down. And I am almost immediately soothed every single time. My energy drops. I return to a centered state because Qigong is very powerful. So that is really how I started to channel. When I chose to listen to my guides, when I chose to practice listening, when I was able to meditate and really hone a quiet mind and a focus on where I wanted to put my attention in my mind, and then being able to have a calm body, which came from Qigong, all of that is really how I've learned to channel. It's how I'm able to drop in right away. I can't, if I wanted to at this moment, even though I've been telling you a story and my energy is in that place, I could just stop immediately and I could drop in and tune in. And even now, as I start to divert my attention toward my guides, I can feel their energy again coming in right away. If I wanted to ask them anything, they're right there. And that has truly only happened from practice. The practice of listening, which is about honing your focus. That's really what it's about. You're sharpening the knife of your focus so that anywhere you turn, you're right there. That is the way to channel. You must be able to choose, this is what I'm going to focus on, and that's it. So Qigong, focusing on the least amount of effort of movement, that hones your focus. Choosing to listen on one sound, choosing to meditate and quiet the mind, all of that gives you the choice of where you're going to choose to focus. That's how you do it. It's funny because it feels too simple for people. People want a more complex answer, or I don't know, something more magical perhaps than that. But it's beautiful that it's that simple. It's beautiful that actually it is quite mundane. I hope that through these videos with me and just spending more time with me and getting to share more with you all, I hope that channeling and tuning into your guides becomes very mundane. I hope that it becomes as normal as eating breakfast every day. That's what I hope. So I want to leave you with that. I would love to hear how you receive this video, and especially if you have any questions just about anything that I've said, about any of the practices. If you want more direction on how to practice meditation, I also have some resources on my website. I welcome you to go there and see that and just check it out, see if any of it works for you. And please also in the comments, help each other out. If you have a meditation practice or something that has really worked for you to practice focusing, please share with each other. That's part of the beauty of this community, is that we all get to learn from each other. So I will leave you with that. And I am wishing you all a very magical day ahead.